last few lectures we have been seeing basics of determinants, determinant functions, their properties and computational rules. Today I want to give the most important applications of the determinants in the computation of volumes, and this application is used widely in many branches of science and engineering. So, I will recall some basics which I will not prove, but I will assume that. So, today I am going to do determinant and volumes. So, finite dimensional real vector spaces for finite dimensional real vector spaces, determinants and volumes. Now, we will have to recall basics of volumes. There is a very close connection, and this is what we are going to discuss in this lecture. So, first of all, when one say finite dimensional real vector space, it is V and base field is K. Base field K is real numbers, field of real numbers, and N is the dimension V. I am going to assume that V is actually R power n, because otherwise the results will be in any case we know that dimension is n. So, V to Rn there is a isomorphism. If I have a basis here V1 to Vn, and there is a standard basis here E1 to En, and always we have an isomorphism which maps Vi to Ei. So, I will transfer everything from this case to the general case. So, we will concentrate on the standard, this is called a standard real vector space, standard n dimensional R vector space. And as you know, the concept of volume is actually we have been studying from the school days. That is concept. So, for n equal to 1, that is a case of real line, that is that of a measurement of a line segment, and n equal to 2, it's so this is lines length of line segment, and in case of n equal to 2, it is area, and n equal to 3, actually for n equal to 3 the word volume is used, and we study all these computation in course of calculus usually. So, first I will recall what we assume about volumes, or what do we what properties of volume I would like to use. I will not construct what it is and define exactly, but what are the working property that we will use for the volumes. So, I am recalling about volume, and as you see this word was used, this term was used only for n equal to 3. In general, what term is used is what is called a measure. So, on Rn there is a canonical volume function. What does that mean? That means and this is usually called Borel so called Borel-Lebesgue measure. Or even more generally, Lebesgue measure. So, what does it do? And usually notation for that is lambda n. This n is for this dimension n, this lambda is for Lebesgue. So, that is a volume function. So, this lambda n associates for some subsets A of Rn, it associates a number lambda n of A. This is a number, positive real number, it could be infinity also. So, this could be, I will write the notation for that is R bar plus. R bar plus is by definition it is R plus non-negative real numbers and along with that this symbol infinite. And that one is called usually the volume, and this is associated for some subsets only, not all. And whenever it is associated, one calls that lambda n A is the volume of A, or also called measure of A. I will not go into the detail that why it cannot be associated to all subsets. And this then in this case we will also say, in this case we will say that A is measurable. I will not go into this definitions formally, but I will collect what should be the properties of lambda n, and if you have two sets V as volume, then what happens to their operations on the sets, and the building blocks where some subsets of Rn where the volume will exist and what will that be. Okay. So, I will only note simple natural properties of lambda n and axiomatically use them. I will not try to prove these properties. Okay, the first important property is lambda n is translation invariant. What does that mean? That means if I have a set A, I have a subset A of Rn where volume exists. So, lambda n exists, and suppose I have a vector x in Rn and I translate A by x, that means I consider a new set x plus A. This is a translated, then this also has a volume and the volume does not change, then lambda n exists and is equal to lambda n of A. This is very reasonable, because imagine if you want to measure a line segment from here to here and this was, I shift it by 2 meters, then the length will not change. Similarly, if I have some portion of the plane, suppose I want to compute this area and for sure I know this area exists, and if I would have translated the same subset here, then the area is not going to change. So, that is why intuitively it is clear. Okay. That is the first important property. Second one is cuboids. What are cuboids? cuboids are, so for n equal to 1, the cuboids are just the closed interval. For n equal to 2, they are just rectangles. And more generally, for arbitrary n cuboids, I will denote by symbol q. This is by definition. You take the interval a1, b1, closed interval, cross a2, b2, cross a and b n. So n equal to 3, typically cuboid will fit in this. And not necessarily the of the all equal length, maybe a different length, but cuboid, and this is cuboid. So what should be the volume of cuboid? Obviously that, so we will lambda n of q is nothing but you take b1 minus a1 times b2 minus a2 etc bn minus an. This exactly matches with what calculation we were doing it in the school. So area of a rectangle, for example, it is this length times this length and so on. Okay, this is what we will use. Mainly we will use this for calculation purpose. Third one, lambda n is additive. What does that mean? That means if I have a subsets A and B of Rn, both have volumes. So lambda n A and lambda n B exist, that is given to us. That means these sets are measurable. Then the difference A minus B and A union B, these also lambda n exist, then this exists, and obvious formula, that is lambda n of A union B is less equal to lambda n A plus lambda n B, and equality holds if and only if lambda n of the intersection is 0. Also I should have said lambda n of the intersection also exists. So, and in particular, if A is a subset of B, then lambda n B will be equal to lambda n A plus lambda n of B minus A. This is also more or less intuitively clear, because if you have a subset here, a smaller subset, then the volume of the bigger one is volume of this plus volume of the remaining part. So all these things are very, very intuitive. The most difficult part is the construction of this volume function lambda n, that is usually done in a first course on measure theory. This is very, very important also for when one wants to study probability theory in a very, very neater way, and without this many applications in engineering and mathematics will not be precise. Okay. Anyway, the fourth one, these 3 properties, and the fourth one now we are interested in so called parallelotopes, parallelotopes in Rn. So first of all, what is a parallelotope in Rn? So you need, these are subsets of the form, So I will first draw a picture. The picture is, so there is a point here, I am drawing a picture in n equal to 2. This is a point x0. Remember, I don't want to still give importance to 0 as the origin. So, x 0 is the point here, and x 1 is a vector. You see, x 1 is a vector in this. So, x 1 is a vector. So, and this point is therefore x 0 plus x 1. Similarly, we have another vector x 2 which starts from here. So, this is x 2. So, this tip is x 0 plus x 2, and then you complete a parallel. See, if you want to add these two vectors, the parallelogram rule says that complete this parallelogram, and this is the x1 plus x2, this vector. Now, this parallelogram, so this point here is x0 plus x1 plus x2. See, that is the definition of this sum vector. And now the question is, so this subset here, this is up in case of n equal to 2, we keep calling parallelogram, and the question is what is the volume of the parallelogram. So, these are higher dimensional. I will write now in the notation form. So, in a higher dimensional case, it is q x 0 semicolon x. This x is a basis x 1 to x n. This, and this is by definition what? These are all sums like this, x 0 plus alpha 1 x 1 plus alpha n x n, where this alpha 1 to alpha n tuple, this varies in 0 1 power n. Power n means product of 0 1 so many times, n times. This is a parallelotope in Rn, where x1 to xn, x1 to xn is a R basis of Rn. You see here, this is x1 and this is x2. If x1 and x2 are in the same line, that means they are linearly dependent and it will not be basis. In that case, it will be a degenerate case, and the volume will be 0. So, that we are not interested in computing 0 volume, it's then nothing to compute. This is a parallelotope, and then we are interested in using the determinant function to compute the volume of these parallelotopes. That is the connection between the measure theory and the determinant function. So, one thing is which is obvious is this q x 0 x, this parallelotope is same as 0 plus not 0 x 0 plus q 0 x. So, this means wherever I have this parallelogram, I will translate it to wherever the origin is. That will not change, the area will not change, in general volume will not change. Therefore, in our calculation we will use this is the property earlier stated, that it is translation invariant. So, okay. Though I will not go much into this. So, I will not go more than this about the volume. So, now in general the notation I will put it for a matrix A, I will denote the columns of the matrix by x1 to xn and assume this matrix is in GLN. And then I will put Q of A to be Q of 0 x1 to xn. Now, because we are assuming the matrix is in GLN, these column vectors are linearly independent, because the rank is n, therefore column vectors are linearly independent, therefore they will form a basis, and therefore this makes sense. And this is one side. This is a parallelogram, and the lambda n of q, qa, this is a number. This is a number. Now we are interested in computing this number effectively. This is a volume of the parallelogram. Okay. On the other hand, what do we have? On the other hand, we have the standard determinant function delta E. This is a standard determinant function on Rn. And what does it do? It of course it has it's unique with the property that delta E of E1 to En, this is 1, and this is a basis for the all alternating n multilinear forms on Rn. And when I evaluate this on arbitrary tuple delta E of x1 to xn, this is nothing but the determinant of the matrix A. This is what we have proved. So, the column, so this determinant, you think of it as a function of columns and it is alternating and multilinear and so on. So, this is what we have proved. And now I want to prove the following theorem. So, the theorem is the most important theorem. This theorem says for an invertible matrix A, which is with column vectors x1 to xn, this is in GLNR, volume of the parallelepiped associated to A, that means associated to these vectors, column vectors x1 to xn, this volume is nothing but mod of the determinant. We know this determinant is a real number, it could be positive, it could be negative, but we know by definition volume is always positive, non-negative. So, we have to take the mod. So, this is mod of, and henceforth I will not write this delta E suffix there, I will abbreviate to delta because E is fixed. So, this is delta of x1 to xn and take the mod of this. And see, I will prove this, but before I prove it, just imagine, suppose I give you two vectors in Rn, one has coordinates AB and the other has coordinate CD, and then look at the parallelogram. This is a parallelogram, and what is the volume? Volume it says that I have to compute the determinant. These I have to write as the column AB, these also I have to write as the column CD, and take the determinant of this matrix and take the mod sign. So, this is obviously mod of AD minus BC. So, irrespective of the origin, this is very important for calculation, and similarly for higher dimension. Higher dimension, the more calculation with the determinants will be very helpful, which we have spent last couple of lectures only on the computational rules for the determinants. Okay, now what is the main ingredient of this proof? So, proof of the theorem. I will sketch I will not write all the details, but the details will be obvious what I will leave it for checking. The sketch of the what will be the machinery that I am going to use in this proof. The main machinery the following. Essentially I am going to reduce to the dimension 2 essentially. And how will I do that? So, look, we have a matrix A which is invertible matrix, and if you remember what did we prove about this? This A has a product decomposition. A has, we have proved this, has a product representation. What is that? A equal to diagonal matrix times C1 to CR, where C1 to CR are elementary matrices of type B I J A. This means this is the matrix I not equal to J. Huh? So, this is E n plus A at the I jth place, A E I J, and I not equal to J, and A is a scalar, and D is a diagonal matrix, and D is diag A1 to AN. I have chosen the column operations. You see, you could have chosen the row operation, then this will come on the other side, but it's a choice I made it here. This is what we have proved it because. So, let me recall quickly what did we do. We have a non-singular matrix. We use column operations to bring column element non-zero here, and then use column operation to make these all zeros. Similarly, the same the one, and then once you have done this, you go backward. No? So, this is very easy. And now, what I will analyze is what happens between the cuboids or the parallelepipeds by these matrices. Okay. Okay. So, now these A's, first of all these A's, they are arbitrary real numbers. I want to assume they are smaller or equal to 1. That is because when I raise it, I know I have to use the properties of the elementary matrices. When I have a elementary matrix of this form, this type, and suppose I raise it to power m, then this is nothing but Bij Ma. These properties I know. So, therefore, I will choose and I will assume, we may assume, I will not write more, we may assume this real number A, mod of that is smaller or equal to 1. That is where I have to use the Archimedean property of real numbers and so on. Okay. Okay. And what is obvious thing is, if you have a diagonal matrix, what is QD then? QD will have volume, obviously. This is mod A1 mod AN. This is like a cuboid, right. So, this is and on the other hand, this is also nothing but mod of the determinant of A. For diagonal matrix, this assertion is trivial. Okay, therefore, it is enough to prove a theorem for only one matrix. So, I only have to prove that if I have C is a matrix in GLN and I have an elementary matrix Bij A, then volume of C times Bij A equal to volume of C. Now, okay, I have to prove that only for this. Okay, so I have to prove that this is Q, this C. I have to prove only this equality. And this, now only I and J are involved. Only I and J are involved. So I will only concentrate on that and reduce the problem to n equal to 2 and where it is very, very clear. So, in the next half we will see some more applications of this formula.